Hi, hello, my name is Kim. I recently read The Garden by Clare Beams and I have no firm feelings on this book. I have no idea what to rate it, so I figured I'd talk through what I think about the book. Let's go over it, all the qualms and issues I had with it, things that worked in it, and hopefully by the end of this video I'll come to a conclusion about a rating. So this was an interesting read because would I say that I enjoyed this book? No, but would I say that it had some important things to say? Yes, absolutely. So it's kind of finding that middle ground of being like acknowledging what it did and what it wants to do, what it set out to do, and whether or not it achieved that versus if I enjoyed my reading experience with this. So I'll start with the synopsis. We follow Irene. This is also set in 1948. And Irene goes to this house turned hospital for women who are trying to carry their pregnancies to full term. The women who go to this hospital have experienced a variety of miscarriages. Irene has experienced 5 previous miscarriages. And at this hospital, they boast that they have these treatments that will help women carry their pregnancies to full term. Part of these treatments includes calisthenics, so they're doing physical activity. The women eat the most bland food that has ever been described before. They eat like boiled chicken breast without any salt and pepper on it, like no sugars, nothing along those lines, like very, very bland. And they're always kind of monitored as far as their like emotional health goes. So they go through talk therapy, which also helps mentally too. At this hospital, there is a garden in the back. This garden has like special powers, and our main character Irene discovers the garden and the powers within. She eventually takes a couple of women in her inner circle, and they both not really discover, but just kind of get to know this garden and everything that it does. And so as the doctor's plans crumble, these women try to harness the power of the garden for themselves. This was my very first book through my Aardvark subscription, and it was categorized as a horror. Would I agree with that categorization? We'll get into that in a moment. Now, some of the background for the book that I thought was interesting. This book was actually based on medical trials that actually happened in the 1940s. I can't pronounce the full name of the hormone necessarily. I'll put it here or somewhere. But it is essentially artificial estrogen that doctors were injecting women with in the 1940s in order to, they were thinking that it was going to help prevent miscarriages, when in fact it was actually doing the opposite. It was causing birth defects and actually causing harm to the mom. I'll post both articles down below that reference that information that I got it from. I didn't know that prior to going into this book. I didn't even know that those were a thing. So some of the treatments that the women are subjected to in this book are those artificial estrogen treatments. They're administered them daily, and occasionally at some points the doctors actually up the women's injections. So on one hand, it was nice to learn about that. It was a spot of history I wasn't aware of, and it was just good to know. Would that have changed how I thought about this book reading it? No. The other thing that I want to talk about is the audience for this book. In the first 2 chapters, there are miscarriages that are graphically described. And obviously it's a horror, and it's a horror about pregnancy and the experiences of pregnancy and miscarriages. And so I wasn't surprised to read that. However, as I kept reading the book, there were certain themes throughout it that I liked within it and that stood out to me. But then I also thought, somebody reading this who does have experiences with pregnancies, miscarriages of any kind, are they the audience for this book too? Because this could be a very triggering read potentially. And of course, we're following a group of women who are pregnant, and it's a variety of pregnancy experiences that are going on, and all the women are experiencing different levels of anxiety and worry. Obviously this house is kind of like their last resort, or hospital I should say. This hospital is their last resort. I do think that this is not horror through and through. I think that this is first and foremost should be categorized as literary fiction, and a secondary category as horror potentially, or just simply literary horror. There were obviously the things described within the first couple chapters that were straight up horror and graphically described. And there were also parts of this that I found to be kind of like most impactful or stuck with me the most. And that is what is scary is all these women are together in this hospital experiencing similar things going through pregnancies. They've all experienced miscarriages. This hospital is the last thing for them to try and help them have a baby. And yet they're all so isolated from one another. All their experiences are very individual, and obviously no two pregnancies are the same. But I would think, reading this, that the women would kind of band together and help one another or support one another in some sense. And that was really not the case within this. All the women were very mentally and emotionally isolated from one another, not intentionally by the doctor's part, but just amongst the women themselves. They were all fighting their own battles, I think is the best way to put this. In those ways, it was kind of horrific reading about that, but not necessarily in the traditional horror sense. Hopefully I'm making sense with what I'm describing right now. You get a glimpse into each woman's experience, their different support systems, the relationships that they have going on in their life, and then there's the added layer of all this oddness that is going on at this hospital. So I'll talk about Irene as a character a little bit. Irene is a very interesting character. I've seen one or two reviews online, like on Storygraph, where they say that Irene is not a likable character. To me, Irene came across as very critical of the situation at hand. She doesn't want to be at the hospital, but it is, like all these other women, her very last option. And so here she is, she wants to have a child, but she's very skeptical and doesn't like what's going on. She doesn't like these injections necessarily, but still puts out her arm to take them because it's what she wants. The ultimate goal, the end goal of all of this is what she wants. And then the doctors. So there's two doctors, they're married to one another, there's a female doctor and a male doctor. I take issue with the way the synopsis describes certain things. They described, like we talked about earlier, the doctors kind of unraveling or their plan going awry. That was very loose. It was just kind of like all of a sudden portrayed like the doctor was getting stressed out about things going on, and the unraveling bits wasn't really like a true horror unraveling or what you would think of that in a horror novel. As well, additionally in the synopsis, the Irene was described as kind of like harnessing the power of the garden for themselves. The garden was very much a prominent thing throughout the book. We visited a few times in different circumstances and with, you know, more and more women getting involved, or well, not more and more, but just the three women that you're kind of following along with in here. But the ending with it, like I was expecting some kind of crescendo or face-off or whatever, something pivotal happening. This ending just lacked in every sense, I felt like the garden, there was really no conclusion. So really, I think the execution of some of the characters and who they are and getting fleshed out, and this whole thing with the garden, the thing that the book is named after, really just didn't nothing came from it. It really kind of fell flat in my opinion. The writing was dense at times, and dense writing does not equate with unenjoyable or bad. I think if writing is dense, but it's written in a way where it flows, it can be enjoyable to read. But this at times I felt was needlessly wordy, where I felt like the overall message of what she was trying to say in certain sections really lost its impact or its oomph. I don't think I've talked about anything I've liked about this book so far. I like the setting of this. I liked this house turned hospital. This house was like a mansion, so there's a lot of rooms. There's this dark maroon purplish curtains and walls described, and you know, this never-ending hallways and doors that lead to empty rooms. And I liked the way that was described, and I wish it played on it a little bit more. I don't know in what aspect, but I just kind of wish we had a little bit more emphasis on that. I did like the garden aspect, and I wish it just kind of went somewhere, I don't even know if different with it, but just something a little bit more to do with the garden, and something that didn't feel like, oh, like that's all we're getting about this. I know that there, like I mentioned, there's a couple of reviews talking about how Irene is an unlikable character. I liked following along with Irene. I liked how she was kind of very skeptical of everything and just kind of looking around and being like, I don't like what's going on, but at the same time feeling like she had no choice. I liked following along with her. I liked her internal dialogue and her observations of everything going on. It was enjoyable to follow along with a female character like that. And her partner in the situation was extremely supportive of her. So it was additionally nice to follow along with a female character who's going through these struggles, and her male counterpart, while he can't necessarily relate to a full extent, but he's just trying to be there for her from a distance and just trying to show up for her in the way that she needs when she needs it. So I did want to read a couple of the blurbs on the back just to get you an idea of what this was kind of pitched as a little bit. This captures the magic, strangeness, terror, and all-consuming pressure of pregnancy. I definitely felt that for the women. I will say that it did feel like you feel the women's anxiety. You feel the women kind of being on the edge of their seat, not wanting to do anything that could cause harm or risk everything. You can feel that in the book. It comes through very loud and clear. Page turner, a puzzle, an assembly of piercing insights into womanhood, ambition, and autonomy in language as bewitching as it is exact. I don't know if this was a page turner, and I don't know if it was a puzzle. I don't know that I agree with both of those terms, but there is, of course, things discussed. Obviously, given the content, there is themes about women and bodily autonomy, of course. Eerie and beautifully written, a shimmering, strange, important novel. I don't know if eerie is the right word for this either. I don't know. I feel like I'm being overly critical. With everything I've kind of talked about, and with the sun beating down on me and making me warm and putting pressure on me to make a rating, I feel like I'm going to land on a 2.5 or 2.5. That's where I'm going to land. Hold me accountable to it. 2.5 is where I'm going to be here. Because a 3 for me, if I rate a book a 3, it's like, it wasn't bad, but it also wasn't great. I feel very middle of the road about it, and I'd still recommend it. 2.5, overall, didn't love it, feel like it dragged on for a little bit, and then obviously everything I've talked about in this video, I feel like there were a little bit more flaws to do with this than I personally appreciated. And I think that this book does have important things to say. I think it's just a matter of figuring out the right audience for it. But if you have read this book, please do let me know what your thoughts are on it, and I hope you did enjoy it if you did read it. If you didn't enjoy it, let me know if we had some critiques in common. I'm getting hot here, so we're just gonna wrap up. Thank you so much for hanging out for a little bit. I look forward to chatting with you in the next video.